This is continuing our partnership today with Compassionate Las Vegas. This is celebrating Compassion Month, and the series continues with Will Rucker and Paige Patton, who are here, and they're going to get to share more about empathic concern. So if you guys are ready, I'll turn it over to you and you guys can get rolling.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday to each of you. And Paige and I are so honored to be with you. So Paige, I'll start the presentation and you can take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Will. How's everyone doing today? I love muted, heads nodding. We're great. Thanks. Okay, cool. All right, Will, I see presentation mode, so this is perfect. Thank you so much for putting this on the screen for us. So again, my name is Paige and my co-facilitator is Will. If you haven't met us yet, we've presented twice already. We are presenting a taste of compassionate integrity training. So we both are here today. We wear a few different hats, right, Will? But we're here today representing Compassionate Las Vegas. So thank you so much to United Way of Southern Nevada for declaring this Compassion Month. We're so excited about that and very grateful to be here with you all today. So compassionate integrity training, a quick disclosure. Will and I are both trained to facilitate this information. Neither of us have a potential conflict of interest. So just want to put that there. This information does come from Doctors Michael Carlin and Brendan Osawa da Silva through the Center of Compassion, Integrity, and Secular Ethics from Life University. I know that's a mouthful, but just to let you know, again, we're specially trained in this information. We want to give credit where credit's due, and we're happy to bring you little snippets of this information to this group. And we were given about 35 minutes today since it's Compassion Month, so we're happy to take a little bit longer today than we have the last two sessions. So we have covered already a little bit from Series 1, and we covered how to calm your body and mind. We also talked about this idea of ethical mindfulness and specifically emotional awareness from this Series 1 of self-cultivation, right? So if anyone remembers, 2 sessions ago, we talked about that idea of going from a spark to a forest fire, and in what part of how we process the world and how we go through different situations, if we're feeling, maybe triggered by a certain event, and I gave the example of maybe I encounter a dog that's about to snap at me, and a dog has bitten me in the past, right? How do we react to these different situations based upon our current stress levels, based upon our experiences to similar situations in the past? And so with that, we talked about the idea of that pause, right? And emotional awareness within that pause. And the second series that we built on that is when we're taking that emotional pause, how do we calm our body and mind? How do we calm our body to tell our mind that we are not in a state of danger? So if there is danger, yes, run, right? Do all the things that our bodies are hardwired to do. But often we are in this sense of heightened anxiety, in a state of heightened anxiety, and we're not actually in danger. So we talked about how we can calm our body so that our thinking brain can come back online and we can act accordingly in alignment to our values. So Will has on here that we've got empathic concern highlighted. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is a part of Series 2. This is relating to others. So we've built on that self-cultivation. How are we working on ourselves first? And now this is how can we start to think about others? Next week, 2 weeks, when we come back for our final session with you all, we'll be spending about 30 minutes in the area of compassion specifically. So that's kind of, we're leading up to the really fun stuff. And what does that mean? But for today with empathic concern, let's talk about empathy a little bit. So Will and I are going to go through some definitions. We're going to actually take you through an activity. So hopefully some people are feeling okay about participating. And then we're going to finish with a a contemplative practice. So if you've been having just one of those days, you're in the right place, because we're going to take at least 5 minutes at the end of our segment to really just bring our bodies back to a calming state and go through this contemplative practice for empathic concern and what that means for us and for others. Okay, so empathy. All right. So how we're going to actually, I'm just going to throw it out to the group. Is anyone really excited to give me your definition of empathy? We've got a definition up there, which is totally fine, but many people have different ways of talking about this word. This word kind of packs a punch. So, anyone want to unmute or write something in chat where you want to share what your thoughts about empathy are?
I'll go ahead and jump in.
Yay. Thank you, Jason.
No, absolutely. I mean, empathy, the definition really sets it up, but I mean, it's caring and, how you care and how you comfort one another, I guess, is how I would view it.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I see a comment in the chat that says connecting with others in addition to that. Absolutely. Feeling for others. Yep. Yeah, thanks for the verbal feedback and for the chat feedback. Much appreciated. So we have on here the ability to understand and resonate with the emotions, thoughts, and motivations of others. I see some other stuff coming in chat, which is so cool. So being able to relate and understand someone else's point of view to better care about them, understand and share feelings, the ability to relate and connect with another. Absolutely. Thank you. And there are actually, believe it or not, we can even dive a little bit deeper into 2 different types of empathy. So this first one, I love this picture of the kid. This first one is called affective empathy, right? So affect is like our emotional states or emotional presentations. And so this one is about feeling an emotional resonance with another. So this actually comes from a lot of our evolution and our biology from way back when. So a great example of affective empathy. I have to tell myself to calm down because I get so excited and then I jump on my words. So here we go. A good example of this is yawning. So has anyone seen someone else's yawn and then all of a sudden you're yawning too, right? That is emotional resonance. Sometimes we don't know why we're doing things. If we see someone smile on TV, if we see someone cry in a movie, we often do that with them and we're not really consciously thinking about it. So where this comes from is a part of our brain that mimics others, and it really came from survival. So I think this is kind of fun to note. So if I was talking to you, and we were facing each other, and all of a sudden you had a look of shock on your face and you turned and ran and started sprinting, I wouldn't sit there and go, I wonder why you're sprinting. Let me look behind me and see what's going on. Like I would just take off, because probably in that moment, a bear was behind me, a lion was behind me, right? We're thinking like way back, evolutionarily speaking, something of danger was behind me that the other person saw and they took off. So I'm going to also take off. So that part of our brain that's hardwired for survival is actually carried on. So that's what affective empathy is talking about, of this sort of emotional resonance that we're not, it's a little bit more instinctual and we're not always thinking about that one. The other one is the one that we're thinking about. And this one is called cognitive empathy. So we have this definition here of using the power of reason to try and place oneself in the other person's situation to try and understand what the person is thinking or feeling. So this is more when we are using our cognitive, our rational part of our brain, right? And I think one of the things for me that is most helpful with this one is we are trying to place ourselves in the other person's situation, right? Most of us have heard that expression, empathy means putting myself in their shoes. However, what we want to make sure we don't do is put ourselves in their situation, but still through our lens, because that actually can lead to a little bit more of judgment or some types of sympathy that can create more disconnect than the connect that we're actually looking for. So a helpful way that I've heard this explained is we want to think about their situation, but really think about the underlying emotion. right? So if someone's experiencing a situation, something that I haven't experienced before, and so I don't really know what that's like, I can think of what's the underlying emotion that they're feeling. Are they feeling lonely? Are they feeling anxious? Are they feeling scared? Those are all emotions that we have felt, right? Are they feeling happy? I don't know why they're happy, maybe, right? I haven't experienced childbirth. Maybe they just had a child. I don't know what that feels like, but I know what happy, I know what joy feels like, right? So it's resonating with that and really putting yourself into the emotional state that they're in at that time. So I'm going to pause for a second. I think we're about to, I'm going to switch over to Will for an activity that's going to challenge us a little bit about our activity, about our empathy, excuse me. But before I do, does anyone have a question that you want to shout out or put in the chat about all of these definitions of empathy? Okie dokie. All right, Will, I'm going to pass to you for this next portion.
All right. Well, thank you for setting that foundation for us, Paige. And so I'm going to invite everyone that is interested to go ahead, take a moment and turn on your cameras, rejoin us on the screen. I've stopped the share here. And I'm hoping that you're somewhere where you've got a couple items by you, maybe a piece of paper and a pen, maybe your cell phone. But what I'd like you to take a moment to do is just draw a straight line down the middle of a piece of paper if you have one. And this is going to be our neutral line. And this neutral line is going to just represent exactly what I said, neutrality. And we're going to think about some scenarios and how much empathy we have with the individuals in this scenario. So start with 1, 2, if we need it, but I think we may be able to get it done in 1. So visualize the entire plane. So to your left, you're going to have very little empathy. To your right, you're going to have a lot of empathy. So you could even write down, I'm going to write on my side, very little and a lot on the other side. And so just allow yourself to think about these scenarios and where you might fall as far as how much empathy you have. All right, so ready for scenario 1? Yay. This is easier in person because I can hear you, but I'm just going to go with it. All right, so scenario 1, a politician with whom you disagree vehemently is standing on a stage giving a political speech. During the speech, people in the audience begin to heckle this person and start throwing food at them. How much empathy do you have for this person? And you can move your little item. I've got my clicker, so I'm just going to put it on my paper where it goes. But you could also just visualize this, just imagine where you'd be. Do you have very little empathy? Are you kind of neutral? Do you have a lot of empathy or somewhere in between? All right, just kind of mark that for part 2 of this. You've just found out that a young child is being bullied at school. How much empathy do you have for the child being bullied? How much empathy do you have for the bully? Now, you just found out the bully is a teacher. Now, how much empathy do you have for the bully? Add one more layer here. You just found out that the teacher has won the Best Teacher Award at this school for each of the past 3 years, but his wife was diagnosed with late-stage cancer 6 months ago and has been unsuccessfully undergoing radiation and chemotherapy, which his insurance will not fully cover. Now, how much empathy do you have for the teacher? All right, last scenario. You drive up to a red light on a street corner in downtown, and you see a homeless person on the corner holding a cup with a sign that says, "Please help me. I am hungry and homeless." How much empathy do you have for this person? As you look closer, you notice that there's a small child sitting by the person's feet, dressed in filthy clothes with no shoes on. How much empathy do you have for this person? How much empathy do you have for the child? Now imagine that there is no child, but that person is your mother. How much empathy do you have? All right, I want to open up and hear from you. Where did you end up on that line? Were you moving all over the board, or were you right in the middle the whole time? Invite someone to share.
I'll go again. I found myself significantly more to the right. As you were adding those layers, it kind of, well, it depended on the situation, but it moved more towards the middle. But that last one definitely just kept going right. So a lot of empathy there.
Thank you for sharing that. When it hits that close to home, that empathy line goes way over, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Others.
I'll start picking on people. Come on.
The teacher example was interesting. I felt a lot of empathy for the child bully, or more empathy, and then less empathy when I found out it was a teacher, until I found out their circumstances. And then I had little empathy, but then it bounced back to a lot of empathy when I found out their circumstances.
Thank you for highlighting that. I think that's really important for us to consider in the bigger picture. Context matters. And knowing someone's story really helps us to feel more connected and tap into that empathy. So, yeah, thank you so much. And Paul, I saw your hand.
Well, the first case, you're going to have. I have a lot of empathy. I'm a caring person, and I think most of us are, to extreme extent, until you start dealing with narcissistic people, and that's a different situation entirely. But then you have once you find out he's a bully, then he's a teacher, this, that, and he's a bully. I still have no empathy for the teacher. When you find out that his wife's been sick and things like that, I have empathy for the situation, but it's like anything else. He's let it as controlling that. And even though he's teacher of the year for 3 years in a row, his actions are not, even though his personal situations is affecting his job. And he should be doing something to take off, take leave of absence, or doing something, or seeking help to deal with that. That's not still doesn't give him any relief from, in some aspects it does, but not. But I want to touch on basically the one that you brought up the second time, is because I'm out here in dealing with homeless people, and it's hard for me, especially like going to Sam's Club today, and you go down Rainbow and pull off right before you get to the interstate. They're sitting there either on a curb. Any effing thing will help with a sign, or walking up and down, things like that. My experience in 20 years from this is most of them, it's a job for them to get out there. I don't have a lot of empathy, and that they will use their children sometimes, or maybe be pregnant, whatever, to get what it is. It is hard in this town because there's so many. I mean, most times, especially here, so many people. It's hard to trust people or to believe the reality of the situation. Is there are a lot of people who want to take advantage of you, and I see that a lot when I'm at the homeless events and things like that. They'll come. Some of them, they just want to see what you've got and what they can take and things like that. So that's my fear to it. It's hard to compare or take it if it was you saying your mother and things like that. But it does have you going over the board, but you still have to be focused as what the reality of the situation is. That's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And one thing you said really struck me. It's hard to trust in this town. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I conducted a survey, and a couple thousand folks took it. And that was exactly the finding. People weren't really feeling open enough to trust because it's transient. Folks are here 1 year and gone the next. In fact, I ran into someone at an event yesterday who just flat out told me, "Yeah, I didn't think you were going to be here long." And I was like, "What?" But 8 years later, here I am. So it trust is a huge thing, and that's why context is so important. So my personal definition for empathy isn't putting myself in someone else's shoes. It's simply looking at things from their direction. And the reason I think that's important is because the decisions that I make are always based on my worldview, my experience, whatever I've had. I can't pretend to fit into someone else's shoes because their experience, I will never actually understand. I'll never be able to fully grasp it. Their shoes just won't fit. But what I can do is I can look at things from their direction and attempt to see them the way that they see them. There's always a reason an individual is doing what they do. And my core belief is that we're all simply doing the best that we can. And if I was in that situation, who knows what I'd be doing? I may not be as capable, or I may be less capable. You just don't know. So that's the way I kind of view empathy. With that in mind, I'm going to start my screen share one more time. Thank you, everybody, for the contributions. That was really rich. Let me start this and put it on presentation. All right. So I want to talk about empathic distress. And this is so important for those of us in helping fields that deal with people on a day in and day out, those of us who have families, those of us who don't live alone or only with dogs or cats. So empathic distress is feeling overwhelmed by the suffering of others. Now, notice in this graphic what direction the arrows are pointing. That's supposed to be, you in the center. Everything really is about you, feeling overwhelmed by the suffering of others. This is a trap that those of us in helping professions can fall into because we deal with so many different distressing situations, and we can forget about how impacted the person we're helping is and only begin to think about how inconvenient this is for us. Oh my gosh, I've been at work since 8 a.m. this morning. It's 8 p.m. and these people are still coming in like, oh my gosh, just stop. Just go get something to get. It's easy because you're tired. You yourself are having issues. Or the example Paige and I talked about earlier. It's like if you got kids and you're at the grocery store and they just want candy. Give me candy, give me candy. And you give them the candy because you're like, okay, let me just get out of this situation. You're not doing what's in their best interest. You're doing something to alleviate your own suffering. And so that's empathic distress. What we want to find is empathic concern. And empathic concern is where we actually care about how others are dealing with life. So it's other focused instead of self-centered. I am not at all suggesting we don't need boundaries. I'm not suggesting we don't have to do self-care and all the things. And I'm saying that it's important that we are very intentional with our thoughts around this subject of empathy. Because in a sense, empathy can be something that causes us to leave our resilience zone, right? We talked about that previously. Empathy can cause us to feel in distress. But what we want to do is have concern. I just want to pause for just a second and say, does that make sense? Does that resonate? Okay, great.
Absolutely,
Well,
it does.
thank you, because I can't actually see faces.
Gotcha.
All right. Paige, back to you. Let's take it home.
All right, excellent. We have I'm looking at chat came up. Oh, Stephen says yes. Thanks for participating. All right. So we have a little bit less than 10 minutes. I'm going to take us through a contemplative practice. So if you haven't done anything like this before over Zoom, it's pretty easy on your part. All you have to do is listen, maybe settle into your chair, go sit on the floor if that's more comfortable, stand up. Feel free to turn your camera off for this portion, and I'll let you know when it's time to turn your camera back on if that feels more comfortable. And then if you want to close your eyes, great. If that's not comfortable, maybe just take a soft gaze onto the floor or just kind of zone out staring out the window. All of that is totally fine. The point of this is for you to be comfortable and to just kind of have, the next 5 minutes is an opportunity to calm your body down and think about this practice that I'm going to take you through. So, in preparation, I want to let you know that during this practice, you will be asked to bring to mind a time in your life when someone had empathic concern for you. So, for example, they had a sense of what you were experiencing and they showed a sense of care and concern. So, if you cannot think of such time, perhaps bring to mind what you imagine it would be like to have someone show empathic concern for you. You'll also be asked to bring to mind a time in your life when you had empathic concern for another person. Again, if you cannot think of such a time, imagine what it would be like if you had. All right, so I'm just going to give you a moment to think of some examples. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with this practice. Let's begin this practice by taking a relaxed and upright posture. Now begin whatever stabilizing practice or practices you find helpful, such as resourcing, deep breathing, and focused attention. Perhaps you feel the breath on the top of your lip as you breathe in and breathe out. Perhaps you feel your shoulders start to soften a little bit as you settle into your chair. Maybe you put a hand on your belly and feel your belly expand with each breath in and contract with each breath out. Now bring to mind a time in your life when someone had empathic concern for you, when they had a sense of what you were experiencing and showed a sense of care and concern. If nothing comes to mind, that's okay, and bring to mind what you imagine it would be like to have someone show empathic concern to you. Now bring to mind all the benefits of receiving this person's empathic concern, or what you might imagine the benefits would be of receiving empathic concern from this person. Now bring to mind a time in your life when you had empathic concern for another person. Again, if you cannot think of such a time, that's okay. And imagine what it would be like if you had. When we show empathic concern to others, what benefits might there be for us and for others in doing so? How would our life be different if we were more genuinely concerned for the well being of others, individually and collectively? Recall the fact that every moment of every day, we are supported by a vast network of people we know and do not know. Recognize that no matter our social status or economic privilege, we are all vulnerable to present and future problems. We all experience all manners of suffering, aging, illness, separation from loved ones, stress, worries, anxiety, physical and mental illnesses, and disappointments. Contemplate how others deeply wish for genuine happiness. And as you do this, pay attention to the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that arise in your body and your mind. And as we draw our meditation to a close, let's shift our attention to the sensations of the body. Pay attention to any pleasant or neutral sensations in this moment. As we conclude, you may add a resolve statement or a dedicatory wish at this time. And then, when you're ready, you may gently open your eyes. This concludes our practice. And if you haven't yet, please feel free to turn your camera back on so we can come back together into this group. And I will just share the mic back to Will for one last thought for everybody. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Paige, and thank you, everyone. So we'll conclude today as we've begun the other sessions, which is really highlighting what compassion is. Compassion is the wish to alleviate the suffering of another. And as Dalai Lama might say, if you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. So thank you for your time. And I just want to open up and turn it back to Jason for any other comments.